people...
There are lots of wrong people in the world, you know, and one of the kinds of wrong people are atheists. But there are other things that that definitely come from the Judeo-Christian tradition that has defined most of what we consider to be right and wrong in the West, and I think our society is the better for it. The reason I have a go at atheists is because it's fun, because they're so thin-skinned. They're like libertarians, or they're like cyclists, or liberal Democrats in the UK, or you know, any other sort of, or feminists, in fact.
Behind
politics. It's all politics. Climate change has never been about science. It's always been about politics. You know, and this is when right-wingers sometimes sound a bit conspiratorial and a bit crazy, right? When they say, "Oh, it's all a construction of liberals." Like 97% of scientists is a construction of liberals. Oh, just get out, right? I understand how that conversational moment comes to happen. Yeah. Conservatives instinctively understand the value of tradition and authority, and of course liberals want to tear all those things down. Everywhere that doesn't have a strong Christian heritage is a fucked up place with bad morals. The way these things normally work is you've got a sort of vanguard of hellraisers, like me, and Katie Hopkins in the UK, and Coulter perhaps here. Now that all those three happen to be right-wing. If I could choose, I wouldn't be homosexual.
Really?
That doesn't make me self-loathing. Cultural libertarianism, which I keep banging on about, which I think is what we've been talking about, which is a word that I'm glad is catching on with people.
So this guy's name is Milo Yiannopoulos. He is a writer for the website Breitbart Tech, which is a subsidiary of Breitbart News and other Breitbart websites that were designed or pioneered or created by Andrew Breitbart, who was a kind of right-wing firebrand reactionary who hated everything liberal. And, you know, he was very warmongering. He was against abortion. I'm pretty sure he was pretty shitty on gay rights and other subjects. And obviously he was into conservative politics and economics and all these kind of things. So Milo Yiannopoulos writes for the tech division of Breitbart News, and he has recently become this kind of catch-all figure for this movement called Gamergate, which was a controversy that turned into a kind of a movement. Now, I'm not going to talk about Gamergate in this video in any particular detail. I'm just talking about it in regards to Milo Yiannopoulos right now. He's become kind of like the figurehead for gamers and all these kinds of people. And I've got a few quotes here about what he said about gamers on the Twitter machine. So on 20 February 2013, he said, "Few things are more embarrassing than grown men getting overexcited about video games." So that seems a little bit negative about gamers right there. On the 21st of October 2014, he said, "Unlike video game console launches, where the only ones present are pungent beta male bollock scratchers and 12-year-olds. That doesn't seem too nice about gamers right there." He also called them awkward, overweight, and lazy. On the 27th of May 2014, he said, "Something others haven't really picked up on. Many of Elliot Rodgers, who was the Isla Vista shooter who murdered a bunch of girls and said that he did it because he hated women, something people have not really pointed out about Elliot Rodger. His lines were directly plagiarized from violent video games." Wow, it sounds like he's blaming violent video games on a mass shooter. Well, that seems kind of anti-gamer right there. He also said Rodger was not... Oh, wait, he didn't say this. This is another guy writing about it. Rodger was not a misogynist, but he was a gamer. So Milo has become this figure in the gaming community that is very lauded and applauded because of the stands he takes against feminists. But he doesn't really play games, and he doesn't seem to like games or gamers. There's another critic called Anita Sarkeesian, who people really fucking hate with quite a vengeance, and she has said on a couple of occasions that she's not a gamer. And everyone just went mental over this, and were like, why is she commenting on games? She's not a gamer, she doesn't have a right to do that. But she never said that they're overweight, fat, and lazy, and that they cause violence. Milo said this, but he is celebrated. As you can see from the montage that I had earlier, he is also anti-gay, which is quite bizarre. He said that he would rather not be gay, and he's against gay marriage, but he is gay. So, and then he said that's not self-loathing. Well, you're gay, like what? But you're against these things. Okay, it doesn't really make sense. He also said that, you know, conservatives care about authority. You heard him say it. And he also, in a clip that I didn't add to that, said that the monarchy was a great system, it was the best system. He also thinks that Judeo-Christian values, Christianity, is where we get all of our morals. He didn't say anything about science. He also says he disagrees with scientists on climate change, and I'm pretty sure economically he's pretty laissez-faire. So he just believes you shouldn't really regulate things. Just let everything go wild. Let the free market figure it out. Now, the thing I want to point out about this is there's been this movement on the internet of people saying, liberals are not liberal anymore because they stand up for Muslim Islamic ideology and they try to help terrorists by not standing up to them enough. There's bloggers in Pakistan getting put in prison, and the liberals are just simply not speaking out about this enough, so it's kind of their fault that these regimes are doing bad things. They kind of ignore the fact that the US is paying for a lot of Saudi oil and just backing up these regimes. They say, oh, it's the liberals' fault. I guess they're not doing enough bombing. They're not doing all of these things. Liberals are the big problem here. They're the one causing all of these problems, which means maybe they're not liberal. They're not actually liberal people. They're kind of anti-liberal because they're not speaking up enough about the Muslims. So we need a new idea about what liberalism is. What is this new liberalism? What is the new modern idea of being a liberal? Now that we can't rely on all the former so-called liberals, who we want to call regressives and call other names like that, well, apparently Milo has found the magic formula, and he's found the answer, because he has managed to become the figurehead for a lot of people that he totally disagrees with on just about everything except one subject, and that was one that he mentioned at the end, cultural libertarianism. So what are cultural libertarians? I think an easy way of starting about it is by talking about a particular issue that they seem to have a real problem with, and that is universities and freedom of speech on campuses. I've seen it said by a lot of people. I don't want to strawman anyone, so I'll just say it's just a comment that I just saw around. I'm not going to attribute it to anyone in particular, but it seems to have done the rounds from what I've seen. I've seen people say, well, you should let anybody be able to speak at a university because the purpose of a university is to be offended, essentially. They don't always put it that way. Sometimes they say, part of being challenged is being offended about certain ideas. And I want to say that to me, and I think for much of history, has not been the purpose of a university. Now, before you tell me that I'm just some stupid-ass liberal pussy motherfucker because I don't want to just go to a university and just have people say offensive things at me and call that learning, let me explain what I think a university should actually be about. I think there are two primary functions of a university. And there's a third function, which I guess I'll get out of the way now, but that's just like, getting a degree just to get a job, or getting vocational training, or that you just want a qualification. You can't decide whether you want to be a doctor or a lawyer. You get a qualification, and you just get an arts degree or philosophy degree and try to figure out your life from there. So that's the third function, which is not as important to this conversation, but that's the reason a lot of people go to university. Like, I just want some kind of vocational degree or something. But the first reason for university, in my view, and obviously you can try to correct me if you want to, I'll listen to you, is for learning. So what's learning about? Well, learning is about taking information that is credible, that has been checked, that is true, and absorbing that from the university structure. Now, if there is information that's not true, that's lies, that's bullshit, that should be analyzed and looked at. And that's the purpose of learning. You kind of learn what's true and what isn't true. And I think your lecturer should give you some guidance. And you can end up having a disagreement with your lecturer that's perfectly healthy, so long as you have all of the relevant information. And I think that's the primary function of university, or to learn a skill. And the second function of university, which I think is more important in the context of the cultural libertarian conversation, is I think the purpose of university is to be challenged. And that is not the same as being offended. Because if you are challenged, it can be about any given range of topics. You could be an atheist and somebody provides you with an argument that you'd never really considered for the existence of God. That is not the official doctrine or idea of the university. and you know that it's in a theological context, so you're not being like ambushed in like a sociology class about the existence of God, and you're like, wait a minute, it's not sociology, that's just thrown in randomly, it shouldn't be there. So you could be thrown this, and that's a challenge, you know? You could be offended about this challenge, but that's not the purpose of the challenge. The challenge is to help you think through it logically, philosophically, about whether God exists, and then come to some kind of conclusion. But if you had a speaker come to the university and say, anybody that doesn't believe in God is just an idiot with no morals, they don't really know what's going on, they have no sort of moral compass, and I think there's a lot of serial killers who are basically inspired by lack of belief in God. Many of the serial killers in the world are atheists. You would probably look at that person as offensive, while at the same time not teaching you anything. And to me, that would be like if you invite Ann Coulter to your university, and she openly says that Mexicans are a peasant culture, that they're lesser, that they're not equivalent of just Americans or other cultures because, like, they, I don't know, just whatever. It's fucking Ann Coulter. Everything she says just fucking verbal diarrhea bullshit. Like, they're greasy and they, I don't know, fucking love tacos or some shit. I don't care. There is no reason for her to speak at a university. My friend had a really good analogy where he was like, well, they might as well just invite the fucking janitor to speak if they're going to invite Ann Coulter. And I think, actually, that's unfair to the janitor because he probably has quite interesting experiences and could probably teach the students a lot more than Ann Coulter could. But what I'm saying here is, if the purpose of a university is to be offended, then you have thrown out any claim or idea of intellectual or academic credibility in your institution. I did have an online conversation with another person who said, you should allow neo-Nazis to speak at universities. You know, it's very like safe space, liberal bullshit. You should just put all the ideas out there and let the good ones rise to the top. And I would say, yes, that would be a good idea, but not in a university context, because, like, do you want a fucking Klan rally there? Do you want the university to endorse these points of view? I think you could let a neo-Nazi speak at a university, but I think right there on the poster you should say, this speaker is a hateful bigot, and we do not endorse their point of view, and you can go and listen to them, but it's not sanctioned by this university. And then if people want to, like, protest that, that's perfectly fine. There's no fucking problem with that, because you're supposed to learn at a university. What would you learn if a neo-Nazi came along and just said, we need eugenics because Jewish people are inferior and, you know, they're money grubbing and have caused all the problems in the world? Would you be sitting there going like, I'm offended, so this is really good. I'm so glad I paid for this degree to come and see a fucking neo-Nazi talk about eugenics. This is fantastic. Or would you rather learn about the context and the history of eugenics and sort of like the history of Nazism and the pros and cons on either side in an academic setting where you're being challenged? Like, maybe you could have another speaker come on directly after the neo-Nazi and say, I just want to point out that this guy is just a hateful piece of shit and I don't know what the fuck he's doing here because this is an academic institution. So that's the thing, is cultural libertarianism is the idea that all speech is good all the time and in every context, and that if you're against that, if you don't want everything to just be dumbed down all the fucking time, and if you want people to be nice to each other, you're anti-intellectual, and you're just pampered. You're a fucking authoritarian, you know? If a feminist group protests people and say, we don't want this person speaking at the university, they're authoritarians. They're just like Mao. They're just like Hitler. It's ruining our lives, and oh my god, everything's so hard for me, being a fucking cis white male, which I am. I have no problem being that. But I'm not fucking offended by somebody, like a feminist or anybody, giving me shit about misogyny because I know I'm not a misogynist. I don't care. To me, it's just like, these cultural libertarians, they hate safe spaces, but they want a safe space for their own point of view. They want a safe space for the point of view that says, we should have a fucking dumb university where Ann Coulter comes and the neo-Nazis come and Trump comes and Ben Carson comes and he talks about evolution being wrong and then we just learn the world is flat and da-doop-a-doop-a-doop. And like, that would be great. That's cultural libertarianism, because I'm sure, just like, you know, the economy, just like in Africa, just like in Somalia, where all of their natural resources have been plundered by corporations and it's just a fucking third world hellhole, that all of the good ideas will just magically rise to the top. Well, I think, no. I think you will be dumbing down your institutions, to the level of debate that occurs on the internet. And I'm sorry if I offend internet people here, but, you know, I'm sorry that you don't have your internet safe space. The debate online is stupid, moronic bullshit, straw man all over the place, fucking fallacies, BS, basically spewing nonsense about, you know, other groups of people because they disagree with you, and then hypocritically whining and bitching and moaning about, like, being called a misogynist or being called a bigot or being called a sexist, and oh my god, it's so bad. But you're perfectly fine with saying feminists are bitches and they're horrible people and you shouldn't be a slut and fucking women, blah, 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 blah. You know, you're okay with all this stuff. So you just want your own safe space. And that's my problem with cultural libertarians. And this entire movement is just taking off online because, in my personal opinion, I think it totally fits into the narrative that people want to have, that it's sort of the whole world against us. But that world is kind of like feminists being condoned by society. And that world is, oh man, we can't let Ann Coulter speak at our university. That's so horrible. And we just want freedom all the time to be like, you faggot, gay, cunt, motherfucker, nigger, blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm kind of for not being stupid. It's really sad that I have to point that out to people who are cultural libertarians. You guys think you're really fucking smart, which is perfectly fine. But really, really smart people wouldn't just want stupid views everywhere. You know, and that's all you really see when you go online. You just see stupidity all over the place. And as a liberal, as a progressive, I'm actually for, like, enhancing the debate, kind of moving forward, moving on, not getting stuck on, you know, identity politics, which is ironically used by people who hate feminists and have problems with, like, Black Lives Matter and stuff. That's all identity politics too. You could just call it, like, it's reverse identity politics if you wanted to. But I'm against all of this stuff. I just want people to be people, and I just want them to just speak their mind and be free, but not in an academic setting. Not where we are trying to enhance the human condition. We're trying to be better than we are on YouTube. We're trying to be better than we are when we're just hanging around with our friends. And that's fine. We can say what we want on YouTube. We can say what we want when we're hanging around with our friends. But if someone comes to speak at university and they're shit, fuck that. You know, it's pointless. So rounding up with Milo Yiannopoulos, the thing that unites this guy who's anti-science, who's conservative, who doesn't really share any of the values of these people, is the fact that he takes on feminists all the time, and that he defends gamers even though he secretly hates them. And it seems like that's all you really have to do. If tomorrow I made a video where I just took a clip of a feminist and said, after the feminist was done talking, it doesn't matter what she said, she just say anything, I'd be like, oh, you fucking weak feminist, stupid duper do, all you want is a safe space, you weak piece of shit, blah 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 blah. I would get so many more likes and so many more views because you don't have to think critically anymore. You don't have to analyze what people are saying. You just have to say a herpy derpy derp and you get tons of followers. Well, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to say things how I really see them. Thank you very much.
I think ordinary people, I think many of your fans, and certainly mine, are a bit tired of having labels applied to them by other people. If you want to be able to donate blood, stop being sluts. Are a bit tired of having labels applied to them by other people. And they are ugly, which is why they became feminists in the first place. They're ugly, which is why they're left-wingers. Having labels applied to them by other people. I might be gay, but that man is a faggot. Well. Like, he's just so odious and unbearable. And labels applied to them by other people.
But DeRay
could not
is
exist
black.
without...
He's really black.
Yeah, but he's not a real black, is he?
What the fuck does that mean? What the fuck does that mean?
I don't know. I just said it
He's
to annoy
black.
people.
That dude's black. He's
my Twitter is
100%.
going to be ridiculous now. I don't even know what I mean by that.